Hello guys. Today we have an extremely special piece, the Todd Rexford Singularity auction piece from the TKI show in 2017. And there aren't too many reviews out there on custom knives. Generally the reviews are more on production knives, and then the custom knives are more or less overviews and in-depth discussion on um, what makes a piece special. So, in today's video, I also wanted to add a little bit more on how I personally evaluate custom knives and why I feel like this is one of the best pieces for a tactical folding knife. Um, and there are a few criterias which I look at. The first one is the artistry or the design. The second one is workmanship, fit and finish. The third one is the functionality. The fourth one is the history, innovation. And the fifth one is the maker. The sixth one you can add is kind of like the X factor, more on subjective reasonings of why you would want a knife, such as you like the way it sounds when it flicks, um, you like the weight of it, etc. And I guess the topic of pricing is always there, but I don't want to put too much emphasis on pricing on custom knives, just because it is so varied between different pieces, and people pay what they find in utility in. Okay, so going back to the first point, I mentioned about the artistry and design, and I guess I kind of wanted to take this review of the Todd Rexford Singularity and kind of go through each of the points together. So the first thing that I look in the artistry is the blade grind and the design. So the way you look at a knife, whether it's a custom, a production, something that is, or I guess one of the most important aspects of the knife is the blade grind and the blade geometry itself. How attractive is the blade? How well is it ground? So, as you can see, this is one of the best examples of a well ground blade. You can clearly see the swedge here, which is beautiful. It's got a nice top swedge as well, which goes all the way down. And the blade geometry, as you can see here, or at least I'm trying to show you, is very even on both sides. It may look a little bit uneven, but I think that's mostly because of the Sanmai blade, where the pattern makes it look like it's uneven, but the plunge grind is actually quite even. And we can see that on both sides. The pattern of the Sanmai, this is the XHP Sanmai core blade, is extremely beautiful. It's not perfectly symmetrical, but that's because more of the steel rather than the maker. But Todd did a great job of centering the core, as you can see here, on the blade spine. The blade grind and the blade geometry, in terms of artistry, for me, Todd does a very, very good job, because I would say all of his knives have blade shapes which are extremely functional. It looks simple, yet when you try to draw a blade like this on your own, if you don't trust me, you should try drawing your own blade shape and see what you can come up with. I promise you, I tried to come up with my own blade shape, drawing different knives. It can never look as simple yet elegant as something like this. the little details on, the different swedges, how high is the grind, you know, what's the angle that everything put together is much easier said than done. Again, you should have to try drawing it out yourself, and you can see, oh wow, my drawing just looks so basic compared to something like this. Um, and yeah, that's all I'm gonna say about the design of the blade. This is a gorgeous blade, but please forgive me. There are a few marks because I do carry it. Um, the next thing on my list is the material combination. Again, this is quite subjective, but I do really love the look of copper and the bead blasted frame and a black XHP core sandmite. I think it's just absolutely gorgeous on both sides and on the pivot with the copper inlay. I urge you to go look at Todd's Instagram and scroll to 2017 to see what it actually looks like when it doesn't have patina, because now the whole thing has patina and it looks, I guess, more like wood than copper, which is still beautiful in a different way. But the copper originally that came out of Todd's shop with his shop pictures, that's just mind blowing. And copper is, of course, not for everyone, but I think it's absolutely beautiful. The next thing that makes a, I guess, custom knife great or a maker's design great is if the maker can make a knife that you don't need to put a name on it and you can tell that it's from Todd Rexford. It's his design. And there are a few makers who can do something like this pretty well. They have a what we call a design language, and not every maker has that. And that is, again, another aspect of the artistry that Todd has mastered. And I don't know how to say this, but I think Todd's design is, it looks like it's simple, yet it's not simple. There are curves and curvatures everywhere that defines a knife. You look at a Strider, you look at a Chris Reeve Sabenza, they have their own kind of theme going on, but it's a bit out there, right? Especially the Strider or the Hinderer. The Sabenza less so, but everything out of his shop comes out looking mostly similar to each other. But I think they with the exception of the slip joints, and I forgot what the other motto is called, but the Sabenzas, the Inkozi, they look similar. Oh, the Umnanzan looks different, but for Todd, every knife that comes out of his shop, there's a design language to it, which, going from the Singularity to the injection, the epicenter, the gamma, there's just something about the design that looks simple, yet it's so attractive. And is universally attractive. I haven't found anyone who doesn't like Todd's design. And I think this is one of the biggest accomplishments you can have as a knife maker, especially when your design is simple and it's not, super aggressive or super, I guess, like when you look at a Michael Birch, there's some sort of wideness that's associated with all of his knives. This is, for Todd to achieve something like this, I think it's, design-wise, is incredible. And that kind of gives, a soul to the knife. There are lots of well-designed knives out there, which, if you put them all together, it doesn't really have an identity or a soul. But, everyone of Todd's work does have a soul. You can see, his hard work on it, and the design is just you, you can, once you fall for it, it's hard to get out of the pitfall, or I guess the pit. Um, but that's enough about the design. I think 10 minutes into the video already, and I haven't really looked at anything in terms of workmanship, fit and finish, which Todd is very well known for. So in terms of workmanship, fit and finish, again, he's known to be one of the best, if not the best, in the industry for a tactical folding knife. Okay, I have to emphasize tactical folding knife because I have not explored, anything else other than tactical folding knives. I know there are a lot of art knives out there with insane tolerances, but for me, I collect tactical folding knives, which can be used every day, like this one. So, let's start again with the blade. The blade thickness on Todd's knives is thinner than a lot of the custom makers out there. I guess maybe it's because of the makers I collect or what, but I think the grind or the blade thickness here is a little bit thinner, and it is a razor sharp blade. It is extremely sharp. I'd say, out of all the knives that I've owned, I think this one with this blade shape is one of the most enjoyable to use when cutting something. And whether it's a, harder object like cardboard box or a softer object like fruits, this goes through everything. I've had, I don't want to mention names, but most, or not most, but a lot of the very well known custom knives, even those that are known for, great users, they have thicker blades. And once you introduce it to, I don't know, an apple or something, it just doesn't, you just need to put a lot of force in it. But with Todd's knives, um, it's just like the easiest thing to cut through. and and the surprising thing is, when you cut paper versus cut apple, this, when you cut sliced paper, may not be exactly the sharpest blades that can, slice the thinnest slice of paper, yet it can cut through, different materials much easier than other knives. So I just love this blade, and I wish it was on every single knife, or at least the cutting performance of it. Next is the finishing of the XHP Sanmai. I think we've seen enough of this, but, or I guess I can never get enough of this, but beautifully edged, obviously. I just want to give you a little bit of a close-up on it. Not much to comment here in terms of fit and finish. There's a little bit of a texture to it, and it's absolutely amazing. You can notice the cord is running right through the middle of the knife and the top as well. Though not perfectly 100% centered, the line kind of curves around a bit. And let's see, in terms of fit and finish, we must look at the pivot. Look at that copper inlay. It looks like it kind of goes over each divots, so I'm guessing the copper inlay was inlaid first before Todd kind of milled in each of the grooves here around the pivot. But look at that. That is like really, I don't know how much closer I can get to the camera on both sides. It looks like one material. What an amazing job. And he does this on every inlay knife. It's always this perfect. And although you may not be able to tell these copper, they're not inlays exactly, but they're extreme. They're, you know, tolerance wise is really perfect. I'll explain to you why. Um, why? Actually, I will do that now. The reason why these inlays, although it may look like it has, a few gaps here, around it, the reason why it's perfectly fitted is because um, if you've noticed, it is a completely hidden hardware build. And guess what? If you look inside the knife, I don't know if I can show this to you because of the light. But anyways, you have to take my word for it. Um, Inside of the knife, you would expect screws under this copper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However many copper pieces there are. And that's how Todd hides his screws or hardware inside. But that's actually not true. I was shocked when I looked inside and I saw that, hey, wait a minute. The screw is actually right in the middle here, right in the middle here, right in the middle here. So it's actually on what is essentially like a frame. Um, so I was like, how did he put this together? And and you know when I went to have a chat with Todd, and I also looked at his, working in progress pictures, basically these two copper pieces are the same pieces like this, right? And the middle part, this is basically the thing that's pressing down on the copper pieces. So imagine, by the way, this is all handmade with no CNC, no water jet. Imagine doing this whole curve down here, different thicknesses of copper everywhere, okay? And it has to be so perfect that once you screw this part of the frame down, there's absolutely zero wiggle, okay? This feels so solid. It feels like each one has a screw inside, although in fact there's no screws. No screws, just the force of the frame holding it in. How crazy is that? That that's you know when someone asks you why do you buy a custom knife, you would want to be able to say something like this because no one else does it. It is truly special to him, or something like this. It's not impossible for someone else to do it, but for Todd to, it's not like he does this on multiple knives. You know, something like this, he had to first come up with the engineering, come up with the idea of how to do these, I don't want to call them inlays because they're not, but for the sake of it, I'll just call them coppers. How do you insert the copper without having any screws and to pin it down and to execute it so well? That's, to me, just amazing. I think that alone just you can that just sells the knife. I don't think any other custom maker that I know of in a tactical knife world does something quite like this, and it is special. It is unique, um, and it really shows the amount of time that Todd puts into one knife. This is not a production thing where he designs it once and he produces 1,000, 10,000 in pieces. He had to spend time designing this and making just one piece. Just one piece. All the calculations that go into this to make one piece. It's just, it's incredible. So, a lot of the times when you have a more artsy knife, it often sacrifices the functionality, Now I kind of want to talk about the functionality, or I guess it's the fit and finish as well, because there's absolutely no blade wobble. The knife is perfectly centered here. I think this is a better view. Perfectly centered. Lockup is perfect with 0 stick. Very easy lock release. Hard to find everything in one package that works just as well as this. And one of the things I want to mention is kind of small, but it's on many of Todd's knives, but this is the jimping that he puts on here is unlike anything else I've ever handled, except from, Todd's knives. His jimping is the best in the business. It is fine. It is grippy. It grabs really well. It's not harsh at all. And it's beautiful. Please, someone, try to make something as simple as this jimping. Todd just nails it perfectly. Okay, what else? In terms of the frame, of course, we can't forget the backspacer and the pocket clip. Let's start with the backspacer. It's also copper. I'm not entirely sure how Todd inserted the copper here. As you can see, there's no copper inside, or it doesn't protrude from inside. So it looks like it just kind of sticks in there. I'm not sure how. Maybe he glued it in. There's a little hole where you can stick each piece in, but it's really solid, and it's extremely beautiful and goes well with the rest of the knife. And you can notice this last piece has a little bit more angles here, as opposed to the more squarish pieces around here. Yeah, I know I'm rambling. This is going to be one of the longest videos I've done because, I'm trying out the new format. So if you're still watching, there's still more coming. Next is the pocket clip. Again, going along with what I said earlier on, where, Todd had to design it just once, make it perfect with no movement. Make it perfect, design it just once. This super elegant pocket clip that works really, really well. One of my favorite deep carry clips too. I like deep carry. It's more, some people don't like deep carry because they think, oh, the clip pokes out, so, everyone knows you're carrying a knife. Well, not always. If you live in America, in the parts where I guess it's more common to have knives, then yeah, you'll notice and you'll know that it's a knife. But if you live somewhere abroad like I do, no one notices that I have a pocket clip here. I go to work, and no one comments on it, no one sees it. It's just they just think it's a pen or something. They don't expect you to have a. Anyways, I like deep carry clips, and this one, if you can just look, there's the little detail where there's this little divot here to match this here. That's kind of cool. And it's hollow, so it's easy to grab and take it out of the pocket, and it doesn't block the inlays. And oh, by the way, the copper pieces, which are not screwed in, have the pocket clip screwed in onto the copper pieces. So if the tolerances on his is off, the pocket clip is gonna move. But it's so perfect that it's not gonna move. It works perfectly. Man. And he spends all this time on one pocket clip and makes it perfect just for one knife. I have not seen this exact clip on any of his other knives. Um, and yet you see, production companies coming out with knives with 1,000 knives, 5,000 knives, and you would think that they would have tried at least one of them and said, "Oh man, the clip is too stiff," or something. Should have spent more time, with the design. But Todd does it just for one knife, and he does it perfectly. You know, Amazing piece. Difference between a custom in the level of what Todd does and some production knives. These days they're a lot better, but I still see a few that still have these basic issues. Um, okay, next is the action. How does it feel? Honestly, I love how it fires. The detent used to be harder, stiffer, harder to fire, harder to open. But Todd designs it so that it breaks in and it becomes perfect. And now that is at the point where it is perfect. Before, it used to give me calluses because it was harder. But now that it's broken in, it is the perfect detent. You can use your thumb and it'll still open. Perfect detent. Love the lockup. Zero stick. And it kind of falls free a little bit. Todd's knives I believe he uses steel bearings. He doesn't use some ceramic bearings, I think. And it's kind of distinct. It's not. You can definitely feel something in there. The steel bearings moving, or maybe it's the detent ball against the etch surface. But I did have. I think it's the bearings because I used to have a hand rub satin, Rexford flipper. I used to have another Sanmai flipper, and all of those have the same feeling. It's not gritty. It's smooth, but you can feel the ball bearings. Rexford feel. If you buy one of his earlier knives when it was still a thumb stud opener, and he uses washers where you can flick it open, those ones are smooth. Those ones are I guess buttery smooth, but these ones are not buttery smooth. Not silky smooth. I like it though. It has its own special feeling. Okay, so yes, ergonomics wise, singularities for me work really well. This butt end is a little bit fatter and it goes right into your palm. The size is perfect. Todd makes, I think not most, but a lot of his knives are 3.5-inch blades, which is, in my opinion, the perfect size. Perfect for my hand. Not too big, not too small, just the right size. Perfect for cutting. And with this blade shape, it's one of the most useful blade shapes that you can ever have. I think this was one of the last. I don't think it was the last, but it was certainly one of the last singularities that he made. Now he's upgraded to a second generation. I don't think he does this for any of his knives, but now he has the second generation called the Singularity C, where it's smaller or slimmer. I think the blade is still 3.5-inch long, same as this, but it's slimmer, it's upgraded. That's, I think, one of my favorite designs from Todd's shop, the Singularity C. And you can see even the maker, I think it's the only knife that he, made a second iteration of, that at least keeps the name Singularity. It's a good design. Um, let's see, what else do we have? Um, I think now we can talk a little bit more about Todd and the knife itself. Um, what makes the knife special is, or what makes Todd special is, there are many makers who can make a great knife. I'd love to own one, but they stay at that level. They do different materials, you know, maybe upgraded designs, maybe a mini version, but that's that's kind of like pushing the limit. But and then there's makers who continually improve, and Todd is at this level, yet he still continually strives to better his craft, better his work, and I can clearly see it. Um, I think I had one of his flippers from 2015, and after 2 months, it started to wobble a bit, side to side, and that's because he doesn't carbonize the lock. And I've had knives that don't have carbonized locks, and it starts to have issues within not even a week. Maybe after 2-3 days, you'll start to see issues. But Todd's geometry is so perfect that even without carbonization, it still works. But I think in his newer knives, he does carbonize the locks, so now that's a non-issue. Um, and he tries different types of builds. Like this screwless build is one. If you go look at other pieces from him, there's one that is a full carbon fiber frame, which is again no CNC, integral knife. Um, that was crazy. And then there's another knife called the cesium, where when he auctioned it off, there's rods going out through the knife. There's 3 main pieces, and the knife is held in by rods. You know, continually striving to deliver something cool, something new. Um, and the latest thing that he did was a RLDM module, or Riddim module. I'm saying it wrong, but I forgot the name, what it was. But that one is a module where there's no lock bar. There's only the blade and the module in the middle, where it functions as everything: the pivot, the lock bar, in one tiny package. And that thing's cool. So this is the sort of thing that is going to make Todd a legend at this knife making history. There's no doubt that he'll go down as one of the best makers ever. Not only because that like he can build great knives, but he continually improves and innovates and builds something that no one else does. And on top of that, going with the maker himself, I've owned a lot of knives from him, and I carry all of them. And when I need to, or someone makes an offer I can't refuse, or I'm chasing another Rexford, I can send it to Todd, and he gets back to me right away, and he'll spot within a week. Unheard of from other makers. Or I guess it's not unheard of. That's not quite fair. I did have great experiences with a few makers, but it's really really reassuring to know that something this special, you can use it and you can have it done. You can send it on Monday, get it back Friday, depending on the damage. If it's aesthetics, sometimes even with the lock issue that I mentioned earlier, that piece was done. I sent it Monday, got it back on Friday. not something you would expect from every maker, although Todd is a great businessman, which kind of concludes this video. It's been going on for too long, but I absolutely love Todd Rexford's work. It's beautiful, it's functional, the maker is a great guy, easy to talk to, and by the way, he doesn't mess about, so if you write to him saying you want to build, you'll never hear from him. If you have his knife and you say something's wrong, I need it fixed, he'll get back to you right away. That's just the type of guy he is. He knows how to allocate his time, and he makes his customers happy, and that's just the best thing, best knife and best business all in one. All right, thank you for watching. I don't know if anyone stuck that long, but if you enjoyed the video, and yeah, please let me know down in the comments. Thanks.